Master Math with ADE. Welcome back to another video of Master Math with ADE. So today we're going to be diving into the worlds of gradients. So let's get into today's video. So as we said, we're going to be talking about gradient of a line. So when we're talking about the gradients, we're simply talking about the slope of a line. So gradient can also be known as the slope of a line. Now, gradient is an important concept which comes in coordinate geometry, which we have to learn so we can know the basics of coordinate geometry. Now, so gradient just measures the steepness of a line relative to the x-axis. So it corresponds to the slope of a path, maybe like a road, which we measure relative to the horizontal. So let me explain more in detail what I'm talking about. So, like gradients, so mathematically, if point A and B are 2 points on a line, then the gradient is the value of their ratio. So, gradient is simply the vertical rise or the vertical fall over the horizontal distance. So, if you see this arrow over here from this point to this point, that's the vertical rise, which is also known as the y-step. And this line over here is the horizontal distance, which is also known to be the x-step. So the gradient can also be the y-step over the x-step. Now, when we're talking about y-step and x-step, so now how we find the y-step is simply by using this equation. So remember in the previous videos when we're talking about stuff like the midpoint, distance, when we have 2 points such as A and B, one of the points will have x1 and y1, then the other one will have x2 and y2. Now, so here we have our A and B. So this is x1, y1, and x2 and y2. Now, when as we said, this vertical rise over here is the y-step. Now, to find the y-step, so y-step is just y2 minus y1. And then our x-step is x2 minus x1. So that's how we find the y-step and the x-step. Now, we said when we're talking about gradient, we said the gradient is simply the y-step over the x-step. So if our y-step is y2 minus y1 and our x-step is x2 minus x1, so gradient is just this. So gradient is simply just y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So gradient is used to be referred using a small letter m. Don't get it confused with the midpoint. Midpoint is capital letter M. Now, so the gradient can be either a negative or a positive number. So, for example, if the top part is maybe, we say, let's say 3 minus 5, over down it has said 5 minus 3. So obviously on top it would give us a negative number and down it would be a positive number. Then if we're dividing by two different signs, negative and positive, we obviously have a negative and that will result into a negative gradient. Now, if we have these 2 points, A, which is negative 2 comma negative 3, then B is 3 comma 5. So if we're told to find the gradient in this line, so we know, so the first thing we have to do is to note our x1, y1, x2, and y2. So this would be our x1, this would be our y1, this would be our x2, and this would be our y2. Now, the formula, as I gave you, is going to be m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And now you just simply substitute. So our y2 is 5. So you're going to say 5 minus our y1, which is negative 3. So we're going to say minus negative 3 over our x2 is 3 minus our y2 is, sorry, our x1 is negative 2. So minus negative 2. So 5 minus negative 3. So because we have two negative numbers there, it would give us a positive. So it will be 5 plus 3, which is giving us 8. So we're going to write 8. So it's going to be 8. Then down here it would be 3 minus negative 2, which is just 3 plus 2, which is 5. So therefore, our gradient will be 8 over 5. So therefore, this is a positive gradient. Now, when we're writing the gradient, we just usually leave it in a fraction form, but it would still be okay if you took it into decimals. So let me show you now a negative gradient. So we have these two other points. So obviously we know our formula, so we'll just go straight through away. Our y2 is negative 2 minus our y1 is 5. Our x2 is 4 minus negative 2, which is our x1. And then we're just going to say negative 2 minus 5. That will give us negative 7 over 4 minus negative 2, which is just 4 plus 2, which would give us 6. So therefore, this will be a negative gradient, leaving it as negative 7 over 6. So if you're understanding the concept and you are finding this simple to do, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can check more videos so you can improve your math skills. Now, let me show you something else. So we have this graph over here and we have those two lines. We have line AB, sorry, we have line A, which is this line over here, which is negative 3, 3 and 5, 3. Then we have this line. We have 3, 2 and 3, negative 4. Now, you need to note this when we're finding the gradient of lines which are parallel either to the x or y axis. So, the gradient of any line which is parallel to the x-axis is always 0. So, the x-axis is this one. So, this line which is parallel to the x-axis will give you a 0 gradient. So, to prove that, we have negative 3, 3 and 5, 3. So if we say 3 minus 3, it would be 0. And 5 minus negative 2 will be 7. So it would be 0 over 7. Now we know 0 over 7 is 0. Now, if we have a gradient of any line which is parallel to the y-axis, it's undefined. That means the gradient is, you cannot find the gradient. There is no gradient. So to prove that, we have these two, so we can say negative 4 minus 2. So negative 4 minus 2 would obviously be negative 6 over 3 minus 3, that's 0. Now, if you're dividing a fraction over if you're dividing any number over 0, it will obviously give you an error message on the calculator. So it's therefore represented as undefined. So therefore, you have to know the gradient of any line parallel to the x-axis will be 0. But if it's parallel to the y-axis, it's going to be undefined. Now, also this other one. So we have these two lines. So do you know what these two lines are called? Which face in the same direction and never meet each other. If you say they're parallel lines, then you're really correct. Because when we're talking about the gradient, all lines which are parallel to each other have the same gradient. The gradient is the same throughout. So if this line's gradient is 3, then this line's gradient will also be 3 because they're parallel to each other. Yeah. So we have this other question. State the value of x if the gradient is 3 in the line A, which is x, 2, and B, which is 4, 6. So this is similar to what I explained in the midpoint video. So if you didn't check that video, you can watch this one right here. Now, since we know our formula m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, we'll just put this as the, we'll equate the equation to the gradient. So our equation is m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then, so we have 3 as our gradient. So this m would be replaced with 3. And then we had x, 2, 4, 6. So if you go back there, our y2 will be 6. And our y1 will be 2. Then our x2 will be 4. our x1 will be x because we do not know what that is. Now, 6 minus 2 would be obviously 4. So that would be 4 over 4 minus x. Now let's just forget about this right there. So 3 will be equal to 4 over 4 minus x. So now we're just going to say balance the fraction over 1, and we can just simply cross multiply. Then we can say 3 times this down here. So we'd say 3 times 4, which is 12. Then 3 times x would be 3x. Then there it would be 4. Now, we're just going to take that side, then to be negative 3x will be equal to 4 minus 12. Then negative 3x would be equal to, so 4 minus 12 is 8. So 4 minus 12 will be negative 8. Then would divide each side by a negative 3, even there by negative 3. So our value for x would be 8 over 3. So that's the end of today's video. So if you enjoyed today's video, just don't forget to subscribe, because I checked the analytics for this YouTube channel. Most of you people who are watching are not even subscribed. So please help me by subscribing, clicking the notification button, and liking every video, and make sure to at least leave a comment. That is why I advise you guys to leave comments and subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I want you to help me promote it and help me grow. So I will see you in the next video, helping you